core values and all the things behind it, you kind of like, we grow up in entrepreneurship with this idea of you need a mission, vision, and values in your company. And
Yeah.
that's how that ends up being wall art, right?
Yeah.
And to some people, it seems to be very effective and some not at all. Do you think that every entrepreneur from jump needs to have clarity on mission, vision, and values in order to create the organization? Or do you do that at a later point in time?
It's interesting. I think it goes back, like individuals, I think, need to figure out their values, and then they can kind of figure out their personal mission or vision, right? I think core purpose, like it's almost easier to figure out your values. Organizations go the other way. Usually the founder started for a reason, right? They want to put a man on the moon. They want to eradicate cancer. They want to do, change marketing and move it all to performance based, or the things that we do that aren't as sexy as putting people on the moon and
Right.
solving cancer. So there's a reason that it started. And there was sort of ironically, the vision is the mission, right? The mission's sort of the longer term thing, and the vision's the shorter term. So I think if you're clear about those things, it's super helpful. And then you can go get those things in service of values or not in service of values. But the values in a company come out when you get sort of 10 or 15 people, and then you start to say, hey, what's the best DNA of all of us? Like, if Brad is the shining star example in our company, what is it about him? Like, what does he do and what are the behaviors? So I don't think you can do, if you try to do company values from the beginning, you're basically trying to do the founder's values. And while there should be some dotted lines, some pretty strong dotted lines between the founder's values and the company values, those tend to be a little more expansive.
I repeatedly see new entrepreneurs get stuck in the minutia, and one of them seems to be this, hey, somebody told me I needed to have mission, vision, values. So they spend all this time doing it. But I love the thought of, it's kind of irrelevant until you have a big enough team where you can see the values emerge or see what they are, even if it is guided by the founder in the beginning.
So I was recently helping a major hospital that's going through a bunch of changes, and a new leader sort of reestablish the values for a division. By the way, this hospital has like one of these kind of core value things that, this word for the hospital core values, that people remember the word, but they don't remember the actual values under it, because they've gotten so, people focus on rise and it's R something, or impact. I mean, like, it's catchy, but you don't even remember what the values were underneath. I was meeting with this team, and we were talking about what I talk a lot about is like, explain to me, in our projects, we ask the same question 5 different ways. That's what any good assessment does, right? I want to know the characteristics. I'm trying to like extract the DNA of like a Brad. And in this conversation, I don't remember the woman, but 3 or 4 people brought up this woman, and they just talked about like what she did. And like, they didn't have the right nomenclature around their core values, but they just knew that she embodied it. It was like the perfect example. Like, everything she did was just what people wanted to be and what they respected and what they appreciated. And so we were trying to like decode her genome a little bit, in terms of figuring that out.
You were going back into it to try to further articulate and find out what the values really were, even though they had them defined. They just
they had values that were, there's always a say-do gap. You're either saying things you're not doing, which is one set of problems, or there's some things that the culture really values and does, but aren't said explicitly as values. And there had been a really, leader that had really, I think, brought the culture down. A new leader came in I had worked with before for a process where he was on a board where there was a whole mess, and actually, they wanted to update their values because they felt like in the mess, they couldn't call out board members for explicitly violating the values. So they had the wrong values. And when they fixed that, one of the things we did was we back tested all the values. And like, yes, if these had been the clear that these were the values, we could have sat up in the meeting and be like, Brad, this is not who we are, and you're out. So this guy ended up later taking over a division of a hospital. And so we went in to take a look at them. And I call it like an augmentation, because you're not starting over, and we say, look, you got to get on the same page about what you're doing and saying. I can't make you, if you're going to say these things, and I said it to another CEO, you are going to be held to these things. Like, if you say our value is be a team player, then someone needs to be able to call you out and being like, you're not being a team player. But I'm trying to just get rid of this mess between what people are saying or doing. And look, I get it. People are so distrustful. They've had all these terrible consultants, and I've seen their work where they come in and tell them what their values are. I'm not telling them what their values are. I'm interviewing all the people and extracting what they're saying and presenting it to the group and saying, here is what people in your organization say that they value. You probably want to make that explicit and start implementing it in some way.
So you kind of cracked the egg on the rest of this question, but a lot of people look at values as sort of a fluffy, soft exchange. How do you make it tactical to implement and instill values throughout the organization?
Yeah. So first of all, I share their skepticism. I was that person. I see these things. I walk into companies and see this crap on the wall. Famously, Enron had like integrity, respect, and humility as their values, and like as their like. But what they actually rewarded was extreme risk taking and backstab. That's actually what the culture was, right? So saying this one thing, I would say like colleges don't, a big, liberal arts university doesn't pretend to be in a city, doesn't pretend to be a small conservative college, in a rural place. Like they understand that there's different environments for different folks rather than trying to say things that appeal to everyone. So when we talk about how does that wake up in every day in the culture, you should hear those things, right? So onboarding, do you have behavioral based questions around hiring? Do you have a cultural onboarding process? Are there stories that are told in the company about these values? Are these stories lore? When I would do our onboarding, I still do it to these days. They're stories I've been telling for 10 years, right? Do check-ins and promotions and recognition systems all talk about core values, right? Are there awards? Like we have the core value awards. My friend has that baton award. There's like a whole bunch of things like this that fall in these 6 buckets of, and when you start to show these to people, they go, like, I don't know, we've never done any of these things. But this way you start hearing it, right? I start interviewing Brad for core values questions. I nominate Brad for a core values award. I call out Brad for a decision that doesn't align with our values. It's on his check-in. When I promote Brad, it's like Brad is a star at Own It, right? Humans start to get, this is like just like dogs do. This is behavior. This is behavior good. This other behavior not rewarded. The problem in most companies is they're not. Again, if you reward 80-hour hero work weeks, you're going to get 80-hour hero work weeks. That's not ever what I want to reward. We ran a performance-based marketing agency. I wanted outcomes for our clients. The person who figured out 10 hours a week how to get a better result for the client, like I want to reward them over the person who spent 90 doing the wrong things.
Yeah, I like that. I think that the notion of values from a strategic perspective, people grasp easier than a tactical perspective. And they're like, yeah, it makes sense. We want to be aligned with this thing. And even the strategic thing took me fucking years to figure out because like truly, I mean, I was in business 10 years before. Yeah, I was like, oh shit. If everybody sees it through the same lens, then they'll make decisions that I would make.
You took the words out of my mouth. It is a decision-making rubric. So Gary Ridge, a friend of mine, who was the CEO of WD-40, took it over, little oil lube spray can, grew it 10x, and took the employee net promoter from 20% to 90% over those 10 years. And he always said, if anyone in our company makes a decision in the service of one or more in our core values, they are always safe. That's putting your money where your mouth is. We don't need a lot of rules. Like you can take all the combination of these core values and you should know how to make decisions. Therefore, be like super careful around values like do whatever it takes, or, and the person said, oh yeah, I took the client out to the strip club last night and we got the deal and we did that. Like technically that's do whatever it takes. So you got to be really careful. You got to be willing to let, say pretty much anyone who behaves in these ways is okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's a very hard one for me to basically forgive decisions that are not optimized because they did fit the values. And to me, like what I heard there is, as a leader, maybe it's your opportunity to reevaluate the values and how you're managing if people are making decisions within the construct of your values and they're still not the decision that you want.
Yes. I think if they are making decisions within your values and you feel like it's consistently not producing the right outcomes, and you probably value something you're not saying, and you're probably saying something that you don't value.